So I spent 58 years thinking cauliflower was gross, and recently I proved myself wrong. Enjoy this one. So here's what you're going to need. You're going to need a head of cauliflower. Alternatively, you can buy the frozen riced cauliflower. I actually prefer the fresh stuff, but there is a real advantage to the frozen rice, which we'll talk about later. And some garlic and butter. That's all that's required. I'm going to add cotija cheese to this one, but you could add sour cream. You can add anything with fat that you like, and that'll get you the texture you want. So you might say, Les, why the hell are you playing with cauliflower? Well, it's easy. I'm trying to be more carb conscious, and baked potatoes and grits and rice, all which I love, are high carb. And so I decided to take a look at this. As it turns out, potatoes, rice, and grits, if you try to eat them raw, they're nearly inedible. And if you cook them and don't dress them with anything, they're really not very good. So they are a vehicle for other flavors, and it turns out cauliflower can be that too. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Pause here if you want to read before we go, but you'll see this slide interspersed throughout. Oh, look, here it is again. We need to prepare the cauliflower. Really not that hard. Okay, really not much to it. We got to get all the green bits off, right, which is the big leaves, and sort of chop that green stem off and pull the rest of these leaves off. And basically when we got that done, we're going to cut it into like big old steaks. So 1.5 inch slices, and it'll start falling apart on you, and that's what you want. Because once we've cut it into these big old steaks, we're going to get in there and just start breaking it apart. And when you've got pieces that are maybe 2 inches across, you're done. Alright, here's our process slide again. We need to boil those bits, and we need to get all the flavor ready to put in. So over on the stove, I got a big old stock pot coming to a boil with some salt in the water, and that stuff goes in there. Now I'm going to get about 3 cloves of garlic. Then I'm going to end up maybe 4, chopping those up, not too fine, because we're going to end up hitting this with an immersion blender anyway, and throw that in my bowl. And then my cotija cheese. Cotija, by the way, is basically a Mexican version of Parmesan. So the flavor is similar to Parmesan. The texture is actually more like feta. So you break it apart with a fork, and it breaks apart really nicely, and you throw that in there with the garlic, and that part will be ready to go. And then I got about 4 tablespoons of butter that I'm going to need too. Okay, and here's the fun part. You got to get the excess water out of your cauliflower, and this is where you might like the riced product better. Alright, cauliflower's got a lot of water in it, and we just boil it, so there's a lot of extra water, and we got to get that out. So you drop it in a towel, and you twist it and squeeze it, and holy cow, that's hot. So you get another towel, and holy cow, that's still hot. So you get some channel locks and a clamp, and try to squeeze it out without burning yourself. With the riced product, you just microwave it, so you don't have to deal with this step. So at this point, the cauliflower is still kind of gross. It's not as gross as raw, but it's still not fun. So now is the time to combine the flavors that we had ready and then blend it into a texture that is palatable. We're going to dump our still pretty hot cauliflower into the same pot that we cooked it in. And then we're going to dump in all the flavorants that we got ready, and the butter and cheese is going to serve as the fat. We're going to take the immersion blender to it and get it to the texture we want. If you don't have an immersion blender or boat motor, whatever you want to call it, I recommend getting one. They're pretty cheap, and boy are they handy for creating textures. So now your cauliflower is delicious and with a pleasing texture. Who knew? So spoon it out into whatever dish you want to serve it out of. It's sort of, I went for a consistency that was similar to grits, because I'm going to serve this with my shrimp and grits recipe. And if you want to go back to episode 27, you can see how to make the shrimp and grits part. But I've ladled some of my shrimp and grits on top of this in a bowl for Rose, and she says it belongs in the Clean Plate Club. So, no lie, for all of my life, you couldn't pay me to eat cauliflower. I just thought it was gross. And as it turns out, you can't eat raw cauliflower because raw cauliflower is gross just like a raw potato or raw rice or raw grits. But if you give it the same preparation as potatoes or rice or grits, it's actually quite wonderful. In fact, this bowl in the fridge, I'll just go have a bowl of it without even topping anything with it. It's really good. You really should try it.